What's the worst thing a doctor has ever said to you? Story 1. At 30, I was rushed into hospital out of the blue with a heart infection and needed a valve replacement. The professor was absolutely brilliant, but she told me off the record that it might be good if I want to get any close family to come and visit and sort out any important paperwork, as it wasn't guaranteed that I will wake up again. I obviously pulled through, but her honesty was reassuring, and even after 10 years, we still sent the odd handwritten letter to each other. We also had these stupid personal televisions on each bed, which cost about £2 an hour to watch. The money would seriously rack up as I was in there for weeks. But she gave me a pirated code so that I could watch it for free. Story 2. I would constantly complain to my doctor that I couldn't breathe when I would walk, and I would get shortness of breath. I was always tired and fatigued, and I would get dizzy if I walked too long. However, she always brushed it off and told me to get more sleep or drink more water, even though I was getting plenty of both. Finally, I made an appointment to talk to her face to face, and she flat out just told me I was lazy and needed to exercise more. I was so embarrassed because I went with my husband and she made me feel like I was just this lazy couch potato. I switched doctors and my new doc decided to do blood work, which is something that other lady should have done in the first place. Then I found out I was severely anemic to the point of needing blood transfusions. I felt so much better after I got my infusions though, as they provided me with a big relief. Some people just shouldn't be practicing medicine, and my story is an excellent example of that. It's really unfortunate that you had to go through such a dismissive experience with your first doctor. It's essential for medical professionals to listen to their patients and take their concerns seriously. I am glad you switched doctors and finally got the help you needed. Your story is an important reminder for everyone to advocate for their own health and not be afraid to seek a second opinion when necessary. Wishing you the best in your recovery. Story 3. One day, my sister called me in tears, saying she couldn't even stand up because she was in so much pain. I rushed her to her house quickly, where I found her vomiting in so much pain that she could barely move. Got her in the car, went to the hospital, and they moved her into ED pretty damn quickly as she was screaming in pain. My champion of a sister managed to answer their questions whilst dealing with the worst pain of her life. She did her best to comply with her exams, to which was extremely hard at that point. Eventually, a doctor comes in and says they suspect she has an STD that is causing the pain, but the fact is that there are no STDs showing up on their panels. Cue my sister vomiting in excruciating pain every time she moved. She pressed the call bell and they asked what was up. I said there was absolutely no way we could leave the hospital with her in this condition. The nurse just scoffed at us, then left. We were left in ED with my sister struggling, telling me she was going to die. Every call button press resulted in literally no one coming to see us. She was eventually transferred, because we became too annoying, I guess, to an observation unit overnight. The next day I got there, my sister was a shell of herself. She was literally gray and said the pain was still there and that she just didn't have the energy to fight it anymore. A day later, she calls me. They finally did an ultrasound after 3 days and told me her ovary was twisted around a ridiculous amount of times. She said they have to operate immediately and that she was lucky to be alive. The hospital wouldn't allow us to have any documentation about her operation or anything. They just told us it was not her information to have. The fact that the doctor wrote her off as having an STD and never looked into anything else until the last moment when she was going septic sickens the out of me. And the fact ovarian torsion is a medical emergency, whilst we were being told there were bigger things to worry about, I'm just glad she's still here. I think that lawyers might be helpful in this kind of scenario, but medical professionals are the worst people to threaten with them because every hospital has a legal team on speed dial. Hell, probably just down the hall. So they will do exactly what you describe, shut up and tell you all correspondence must go through the legal department. Story 4. Even though it looked like I dislocated my knee at first, I didn't do it, obviously, because it wasn't swollen out like a balloon. I went to a doctor and he then proceeded to push my knee down flat after it had sized in a bent position to put a stretchy bandage on it. I went back 2 days later because I had lost feeling in my toes as the knee had pinched nerves. They did an MRI and I had a complete tear of the ACL. Furthermore, my bones in the shin bone and femur were bright white from the bone bruises/fractures. I absolutely dislocated my knee and the specialist just smashed my knee down and said, "Off you go, basically. What a weird man it was, to be fair. Story 5. 3 years ago, I went for an eye test, and the optician gave me a note and told me to go directly to an eye hospital. I gave the note to the receptionist there, and the lady who worked there put me in the right direction. I was taken right through the waiting room and put in the CT scanner within 20 minutes of arrival. Shortly after, a doctor came and said that there was something in the middle of my brain and that an ambulance is going to take me to a neurosurgery specialist hospital. A few hours later, I was having a drain put into my skull to get rid of built-up spinal fluid pooling behind my eyes. An MRI scan revealed a golf ball-sized cyst in the middle of my head that was causing problems. Not gonna lie, that was a pretty bad day. Story 6. This was overheard by a friend of mine when a neurosurgeon looked at the CT of her son's brain. There's no point in doing this one, as it seems the kid is done. I'm out of here. The good news is another neurosurgeon did the surgery, and the kid, now about 40, is perfectly fine today. Another story I heard while working in a hospital, but cannot verify, says the following. A guy was gravely injured due to being shot in the face, and there was no chance of recovery since he was expected to die within a very short period of time. But then an intern walks into the room and asks if he is the guy they're going to harvest the kidneys from. The doomed patient was reported to have reacted by briefly bolting up into a sitting position. I hope it's not true, but they did get the kidneys eventually. In my opinion, everyone remembers the miracle surgeries that cure seemingly incurable conditions. No one likes to think about the ones that deprive parents of months or years with their kids, or the surgeries that leave those kids crippled for the rest of their lives, or even just the ones that add a bunch of fear and pain onto a life that's already going to be painful and short. Sometimes the correct choice is hospice, even if surgery isn't literally impossible. Story 7. I once told the wrong family member that her mother was coding. I have some decent excuses, but that was horrible. It was late enough at night that I was the only doctor available, with just a handful of nursing and tech staff. As we go into those quieter hours, one by one the colleagues sign out their patients to the overnight staff and leave. I got called into a room to run a code, and someone found it down and already worked on it for 20 minutes en route by EMS. It wasn't looking very hopeful for a meaningful recovery. A woman in her 40s appears in the doorway and says she's the daughter. If I'm the only doc on, I have to do the intubation, run the code, and speak with the family. Sometimes it's all at the same time. Since she turned up and appeared to recognize the patient, I failed to confirm the patient's name with the daughter and instead launched into the delicate questions. How long had she been ill and how did this start? Turns out the daughter was actually the daughter of the previous patient in that room who had been moved out to accommodate the arrival of the coding patient. When she came in, she told the front desk that she didn't need any help finding her mom's room, so she brought herself back. Very unusual, but the code was monopolizing the staff. Her mom had the same hair color, and there were all kinds of tubes obscuring the face during these times. Her actual mother was just fine 2 doors down. Well, the daughter didn't have a heart attack, so that was nice. And I will never again gloss over the confirmation of identity, no matter how obvious it seems. Story 8. In middle school, I was seeing a psychiatrist for generalized anxiety and panic disorder. I had been struggling with my weight because I was too anxious to eat, and at one point I was about 15 pounds underweight. I started taking antidepressants and I gained weight once my anxiety started improving. One day, my psychiatrist brought me over to the scales so he could weigh me. He told me that I needed to watch what I was eating because I was starting to get fat. I was finally at the low end of a healthy weight after struggling for months, and it was such a blow to my self-esteem after all the progress I had made. I broke out in tears as soon as he said that. It crushed me. My mom yelled at him, and we walked out of his office and never came back. I'm sorry to hear about your negative experience with your psychiatrist, especially when you were making progress with your anxiety. It's important for mental health professionals to be sensitive and supportive when dealing with issues like this, as negative comments can have lasting effects on a person's well-being. I'm glad your mom stood up for you and that you didn't return to that psychiatrist. It's crucial to surround yourself with a supportive and understanding team when dealing with mental health issues. Keep focusing on your progress and remember how far you've come. Story 9. I had a problem with my teeth and had to have most of my teeth pulled out. The dental surgeon poked around at my healed track marks, then brought all his staff in to look at them. Then he began accusing me of taking pain and Xanax the night before and threatening he couldn't put me out because of that. I literally didn't understand what was happening. It was humiliating on a level that I cannot explain. I was already humiliated and embarrassed at the shape of my mouth. Now this? All I could do was politely sit there and take it. Wait for him to finish with all his little hate and do his job. I don't have to emphasize what an hole he was. I guess this is definitely not the way to go about it, but I understand where the dentist is coming from. A lot of people lie about drug use. If someone has done drugs recently and is given the medication to put them under, they will die. And because of this, it needs to be taken very seriously. Story 10. I went for treatment related to acute myeloid leukemia 6 years ago. I passed through chemotherapy and total body irradiation with an allogenic stem cell transplant. It was my 28th day of a biopsy after my stem cell transplant results came in, and my doctor literally came in stoic, as he could be with paperwork printed out. He just said the transplant didn't work and I still had residual cancer cells in the flow cytometry of my marrow. I simply just accepted it and didn't even look at the paper. My brain was just thinking of all the different scenarios. As the minutes went by, I had a different attending come in and say that there were still other options, which made me reassured. I also had another doctor from the Middle East come in after her and told me I was still young and there were other treatments we can try, so it lessened the blow at that point. I had always been pretty optimistic, even with such a poor prognosis. Fast forward another 14 days, I had another bone marrow biopsy to see how much the cancer had progressed, to understand how we could attack it, and there were no signs of any cancer cells. The results showed that my donor cells attacked the residual cancer cells and saved me. I now have the DNA of a French woman who is 6 years old. Modern medicine can be truly amazing nowadays. Story 11. A doctor told my parents I'd gotten used to all the attention after having an emergency appendectomy and was only pretending to still be in excruciating pain. I was 7-ish. What actually happened was they left acid just around and it was literally burning tissue and creeping over to my liver. I spent a month in the hospital, which is not easy for everyone if I'm being honest. A different doctor who used to be a family friend once told my sister, 6 years old, that Tourette's syndrome wasn't real and she needed to stop faking it. I can't tell you how damaging that was and what it took to help her feel secure with her tics again. Story 12. A couple of years ago, went to a medical expert for headaches and stress. He was sent off for some tests and an MRI because of the symptoms I had. I never had anything similar before. He just told me to take a vacation and relax and that I was probably just overworking myself and stressed from my business. So I took the whole family, wife, kids, and dog on a nice getaway to the Smoky Mountains and rented us a nice private cabin where we had 5 whole days to relax and take in the beauty of the Smokies. Got to our cabin around 4 p.m. It was amazing, with an indoor pool, billiards table, indoor put golf, and an arcade room all for ourselves. I know it sounds extravagant and expensive, but we actually paid like $1,000 for the whole week. I thought it was a great deal for everything that was included. I woke up the next morning excited to check out Pigeon Forge, and the kids wanted to go-kart and all that. Well, at 8:30 a.m., I check my email against my wife's advice, and I see the message from my doctor with the results of my MRI. It read like this: the results of your MRI have been reviewed by our medical team, and we have found a large brain tumor on all of the scans. Please contact us immediately to schedule more testing and to speak with a neurosurgeon. How could I relax after hearing such news? To add some info, luckily it was not cancer. The tumor was a macropituitary adenoma, which caused hyperprolactinoma. Normal prolactin levels in a male should be below 12. Mine were over 800. So the tumor is producing prolactin and pushing on or growing into my optic nerve and whatnot. After 2 years of medication and the worst side effects imaginable, we've finally got the medication doing the right thing, shrinking the tumor and straightening out my hormone levels. Neurosurgeon didn't want to operate because she said the location of the tumor was in a spot where there was a chance surgery would paralyze me. Reply 1. By contrast, my spouse had a test done because his doctor suspected celiac and the lab gave him the raw results, which he had enough knowledge about to see it was probably celiac. Then the doctor called to set up an appointment to go over the results. My spouse tried to get a phone appointment because he already knew and he was very busy with grad school, but they insisted on an in-person appointment. It turned turned out it was celiac, and the medical expert just gave him a bunch of advice he already knew from researching at the beginning of the whole process. Story 13. In the past, I was fighting bipolar disorder and I was medicated for it, but it didn't work, so the doctor kept increasing the dose. Eventually, I was taking 800 milligrams of Seroquel a day, which resulted in me getting so doped up I couldn't even read. Consequently, I had to drop out of college due to my health condition. I couldn't sleep without it anymore, and when I tried, I stood up for almost a week. I had to move back with my father because I wasn't able to care for myself anymore. In a matter of fact, I tried to kill myself a couple of times and ended up under observation. The doctor considered shock therapy as a potential solution. After almost 10 years, I switched doctors, found a good therapist, and started the process to remove the meds. It turned out I'm not bipolar, but actually autistic. I don't have mania, but do possess sensory overload and hyperfocus. I act weird when put in chaotic situations because they overwhelm me. After 2 years of therapy, neurologist and psychiatrist appointments, and hundreds of pages of diaries and reports were written, I finally got a proper diagnosis and I'm free from that. I'm not getting those 10 years back though. My mom died during that time and I'm not getting her back either. I'm in college again, but the opportunities I lost are gone forever. And the doctor, he's still out there getting paid by the drug company to push their product. It's heartbreaking to know that you lost so much time, opportunities, and even your mom during those years. However, I'm glad you found a new team of medical professionals whom were able to correctly diagnose you and help you on your path to recovery. It's inspiring to see you back in college and moving forward with your life, despite the challenges you've faced. Your story serves as a reminder of the importance of seeking multiple opinions and advocating for ourselves when it comes to our health. Story 14. I had a hard lump under my belly button that was excruciatingly painful. I had a hernia there when I was 7, so went to my doctor to get some advice/scans about how to deal with it since it was now very painful. The doctor felt the lump while I was crying in agony. She then told me not to worry about it because it was only small and told me stories about how pregnant women get hernias much worse than this. It was a few years of debilitating pain later, but I finally found a new doctor who sent me for scans right away and put me on a waiting list for a repair. When they finally took it out, it was actually an endometrioma. At every step of the way, medical experts shrugged off how painful it actually was, thinking it was just a hernia. It was the blasé attitude that always got me, even from the ER doctors. Story 15. Years back, I had a surgery on my pinky finger to reattach a tendon I had tore off the bone. The surgeon gets in there, finds no tendon to reattach, and with permission from my wife, takes a portion of it from my wrist to replace the missing one and completes the op. Being the klutz I am, I fall down some concrete steps and feel some pain in my arm. Go to open the door to my house and feel a pop in my forearm. I immediately knew what it is and called the doctor's office to see if there was anything to be done. I get the surgeon's assistant/trainee and tell them what happened and ask what to do as I have a lump in my forearm and pain. She says they didn't operate on my wrist/forearm and basically my pain medication is making me confused, and no matter what I say, keeps dismissing me. So I call back and make a regular appointment for the same day. Guess who comes into the room with the hand? It was the assistant/trainee I fought with earlier. She hears me retell my story and the whole time is looking at me like I was wasting time. After I finished telling my side of things, the surgeon said that the lump, pop, and pain are probably the stitches and the tendon in my wrist coming undone. Making full eye contact, I was vividly surprised. The assistant didn't apologize but never met my eyes for the rest of the visit. Unfortunately, I was the ultimate loser, as there was nothing to be done to fix the spare tendon in my wrist, so I had to just let it shrivel up and be absorbed. In the end, it was really creepy having a lump slowly shrink up to my elbow and disappear. Please leave your story down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to make a video about them in the future, and also don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, Tony's fam, peace out.